Hello, people. Welcome. Welcome. It's good to be with you. We're talking about a beautiful vision that Ezekiel was given in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, from verse 1 through to verse 14. It's a valley of dry bones. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Ezekiel, in his vision, saw this valley just full of dry, old bones. And the Spirit of God said to him, "Hey, Ezekiel, do you think these bones can ever live?" And Ezekiel said, "Well, I don't know. You should answer that question. Only you know." And the Spirit said to him, "Prophesy to these bones." So he did. He began to preach his heart out to this bunch of dead bones. And the bones joined together, sinews joined the bones, flesh came to the bones. And eventually there before him was a valley full of dead bodies. And he said, "Well, that looks good, but that's not good enough." And then God said, "Keep prophesying, keep preaching at these dead bodies." And then the wind blew, the Spirit of God came and filled those bodies with life. They stood up, and we read that there stood before him a great army. It's a fantastic passage, but I just want to read this part to you. "So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them. They came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast army. And God said, 'I will put my Spirit in you, and you will live. And I will settle you in your land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken. I have done it, declares the Lord.'" This is an exciting passage, man. But there's a bit of a warning and a bit of a thing for us to think about. Are we a bunch of dead bodies? Or maybe some people are still dry bones. I don't know. Maybe some are dry bones with sinews. Some they were once dry bones are full bodies, but they haven't found the power of God yet, because there is no power without the Spirit of God. You see, you can look the part. Those bodies looked the part. They stood up and they just looked like great human beings. But without them, without the Spirit of God in them, there was no life. And if there is no life, there is no power. So I guess the question to us today is something that we apply to ourselves as well as to our churches, to us corporately. Are we just a bunch of dry bones? Are we just got a few sinews on, bit of flesh maybe? Or have we stood up under the power of God's Holy Spirit who indwells us? Now, applying this to yourself, only you will know that. But let me tell you what, you'll notice that you are, because the evidence will suggest that. This vast army that stood up before Ezekiel, I'm sure, went straight to work. If the vision could have been completed, that army was not just standing there all dressed up with nowhere to go. That army was all stood up, dressed, ready to fight, ready to go to war on behalf of God, who would be the commander-in-chief. Now, in our lives, there's so much talk about prayer, and we can say the words, can't we? We could go through the religious procedures. We could do all the religious stuff that we may think is good. And I don't want to knock it completely, because there is some beautiful stuff there. But if that's all we've got, then we've sold ourselves vastly short. The Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, who comes upon us, is the one who gives us power. Think back to Pentecost. There's 12 disciples who before Pentecost were just a bunch of gibbering idiots. They were running around like chickens without heads. Jesus had died. They didn't know what to do. They'd forgotten the promises of God, that he would come and be in them. And there they were, just helpless, but they were alive. At least they were alive. And then came Pentecost. Woo. Totally different. All the challenges that they once faced, all the fears that they once had, were dispelled. Not because they went on a good help yourself course, become a better person, self-help thing, but because the Spirit of God invaded their lives. I love that word, invaded their lives, which means that they got them out, they moved them, they took them away from where they were, and the Spirit of God invaded, getting rid of all the junk in their lives so that they could become what God wanted them to be. That's, in essence, the source of power. It's found not in religious behavior, not by being a nice person or an obedient person in that sense, but somebody who's empowered by the Spirit of God. Here's a beautiful thought, though. God says to us, if you want the Holy Spirit, all you have to do is ask. He's never turned anybody down. when you come humbly before God and ask Him to fill you with His Holy Spirit, He will surely, surely do that. He said, if you lack, ask, because He's got plenty and He's willing to give. Take some time today, people, just to draw aside quietly and ask God. Say, Lord, according to the promise of the word, you said if I ask, you'll give. And then leave that place believing. There's the key. You've got to believe then that God has filled you, and then go and save the world. Go and have a good day. We'll see you soon. Bye.